In this podcast, the first in a series about maze, we discuss what maze is, why it is gaming.
Hello there, gentle viewer.
Hi.
This is Vincent Watkins here with a couple other people whose real names I've barely bothered to learn. If you want to go ahead and introduce yourself, folks. Alex.
Hey. I got into Maze. I think my mom bought it for me when I was 12 or 13. And, I couldn't make much of it back then as a kid, right? So I just, I did the simple stuff like looking for the odd man out. A classic, room 26 with the devil tails pointing to all the doors but the one that is real, and that kind of stuff. And yeah, I think the resurgence came around because the internet.
Series about maze. We discuss what maze is, why it is.
Hello there, gentle viewer.
I'm not.
Why are we hearing the beginning of the broadcast now during the broadcast?
I don't know what's happening and what's not happening.
Hey.
Was that just me?
I don't know.
It's the height of professionalism in here. I actually thought that Greg had started singing again.
No, I was confused. I wasn't singing again.
I was finished anyway.
Okay, so that's Alex. He got the book as a kid and figured some stuff out, but not very much.
Right.
Which is more than most people. Greg, what's your story?
Well, I'm Joe. I just found Maze, I think a few months ago at Goodwill, and it was sitting on the shelf. And we have a childcare here, and I started reading it with the kids, and then I took it away from the kids because I just wanted to read it by myself, and just kind of fell into that rabbit hole. I'm thinking I have a different experience than all of you because I've, entered into Maze with the internet. So I found White Raven's site pretty quickly after I took the book away from the kids, and so I've kind of, my path through the maze has been kind of along with that site and with the community that was kind of already formed. It seems like a lot of what was on there when I got in there was from like a year ago, and then it kind of seems like it's picking back up again. Maybe it's cyclical, like every spring people kind of start wanting to talk about maze. I don't know.
Well, yeah, I think people discover the same clues over and over. Like, every time there's a resurgence, they just sort of rehash the same things, which is what I noticed when that guy Bailey posted his site. There's a lot of that stuff, a lot of that shit's already on Abyss,
Uh-huh. There's another new site.
If not better worded, actually, in some cases, at least.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, well, I think what a lot of it is when Into the Abyss first started, people were just posting stuff in there that had already been long known. And so that's why there was a big boom of solutions then, not because people were actually discovering new things. No one was tirelessly going through the old archives of every solution that had been posted and putting it in there. So some of that stuff is still trickling in. But I think, in the last few weeks, some new stuff, like real new stuff that was never mentioned by anyone, has been coming in. And I didn't realize, Greg, that you had just gotten into Maze because you've come up with some of that new stuff, like big stuff. I think Room 7, and oh shoot, I thought you had another solution in there that I thought was pretty good that I'd never heard before, but I can't remember off the top of my head. But anyway, that's sort of the story. I'm similar to Alex. I got the book when I was a kid. Thought it was amazing. It was beautiful, but couldn't make any sense out of it. How old were you when you got it, Alex?
Like 12, 13.
I think I was younger than that, and I don't think I got anything. I don't think I got a single. I found the shortest path in and out of the center of the maze because that's just, it's just mapping it out once you find the secret door.
Yeah.
But I didn't solve any riddles or anything. And then around 2000, John Bailey had his website, and the riddle of the maze and some of the big central mysteries had been solved, and that got passed around. But that stuff was solved because the publisher had released that was what the solutions were, and had released clues to what the riddle of the maze was. So people then knew the answers and then could go back and find out how you get to those answers somewhat.
Well,
There's still was not much that had been solved fairly just from looking at the book. Um, so then,
John Bailey's site was the first time I saw it online. Actually, that's where I read the solution to the quickest path to the maze. I mean, through the maze, and he mentioned some other thing about like going through the unseen doors. You can do it in 4 steps or something, which obviously is illegal in game terms. But I thought that was a cool. That was the first time I thought about being able to go through doors that are not listed, like backtracking, in other words.
yeah, there's a lot of interesting stuff on Bailey's site, which didn't really figure into the riddles, but there was just compilation of information and just interesting thoughts about the maze and whatnot. I mean, it stirred up interest again, and it got me thinking about maze again, but not a lot of progress was made, so it kind of tapered off and died out after a while. And so then...
it seems like to me a maze is a real, well, for me it was always a kind of community effort. Like
For sure.
I kind of wish I had that childhood where I was able to just kind of zone into it as an individual thing, but I don't think I would have gotten anywhere. Like, to me it's through the dialogue that the solutions come, more so than just looking at it solitaire without knowledge of what everyone else has come up with.
Well, you know, plus when it came out in 1985, there was no community really out there discussing maze. You know, it wasn't a popular enough book that it's like every kid on the block had it, so you could just gather together and solve it. And there was no internet to talk to people, so I think people were essentially dealing with it on their own. And there's just no way in hell anyone was going to figure anything out that goddamn.
Yeah, you would have needed like a magazine, if there was like a number of books like that, a magazine maybe through the letter section. There's other kind of hobby, like you have D&D first edition behind you, right?
Yes, I do, right there.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's like a magazine like Dragon Magazine or something. If there was I think just that maze is so singular, there wasn't anything like that.
Mm-hmm.
I think the only way people were gonna sort of connect with each other is if maze was offered through. You guys remember Scholastic? It was like this publisher or this distributor back in. I don't know if you guys had it. You're in the States. I'm in Canada, but
it's still around here.
Okay, well, in any case, like through Scholastic, I'll explain for the viewers, I guess. Basically, it was a service that it gave brochures to schools, and then you could order books. So, like, if you're in the same class with other people who like dug maze, then you could all get it together. Like, that's the only way that I see it happening, like in the 80s or 90s, right?
Yeah.
I should explain a couple of difference between the United States and Canada. We don't read in the United States.
Oh, we just play hockey. We just play hockey. We don't read either.
I've seen the Scholastic recently. Like, they still make them, and now it's like video games, and there's some there's some books there too. Yeah.
I got some records off Scholastic back in the like early 90s. I got some shitty like French Canadian records. Since parted with them, but
cool.
So
they're always multimedia.
This current boom of interest in maze, I'm calling the second resurgence. It's based off a somewhat controversial website called Into the Abyss, where a fellow who goes only by White Raven has claimed to have solved. Well, he initially claimed to have solved 44 of the 45 rooms in maze. Now, the one room that he hadn't figured out was 22, but that's been pretty well explained by this point. So I guess by his figuring, he's got pretty much the whole book pretty well figured out. But instead of revealing the solutions, he said, he's kind of opened it up to the public and said, hey, come here and tell me what you've got, and I'll tell you if you're correct or how much is left to go. He has rankings on each room to say whether it's not solved at all, totally solved, somewhat solved, and so it's kind of spurred on people interested in maze to come and try to get all those rooms completely solved.
So he gamified it. He gave it points. You can get points.
Yeah.
That's just give someone some incentive and some sort of stopping place, because otherwise you can look at maze and think you know what you're doing, but you really don't know. So it kind of, whether he knows or not, it helps to have someone to hold up and say, okay, you've done something. It give you. Personally, I think Maze is about the process, but in order to go on a walk, you have to have a destination, and he kind of offers a destination, whether it's really a final destination or not.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, at least whether intellectually, I think that something like White Raven's scoring system is necessary. At least in reality, it really does inspire you to, in the same way you're playing a game and there's like 50 achievements that you're supposed to get, even if it's totally stupid shit, you feel like, oh,
Yeah.
I want to get 50 mushrooms. I want to kill 99 evil knights, whatever. It still makes you want to get those points or whatever. But that's also where some of the I referred to it as controversial. Not everybody likes this thing of White Raven sitting on top of all his secrets and saying, Alex is smiling because he thinks I'm talking about him, which I guess maybe. But like I exchanged a few emails with Andrew Plotkin recently, and he expressed a distaste for the way that that Into the Abyss is being set up. But
at the same time, if he just gave out the answers, like how fun would that be? You know what I mean? I think, definitely if he did indeed achieve that goal of getting all the rooms but one, then if that was me, I don't know how I would feel about it. Maybe I wouldn't want to give out those answers so easily if it took me a shitload of time and effort to find that. You know what I mean? It's almost like a treasure. You're not just gonna give it to somebody out of the blue. So I see what he's doing in that respect.
But I think he also wants people to have that experience too. Like going back to video games, if you played a video game where you used a cheat code and kind of made it through the game using that, it's no longer satisfying, to play it. And so if he does give all the answers, then it's no longer fun. Which is why I think we're kind of in an exciting time, because not all the answers are on the internet. You can't get it. You can't have the book spoiled for you, really. And we're in this process of discovery, and that's why you're kind of able to trade information, because none of us really know for sure. We're all just kind of figuring it out and bouncing ideas off with each other.
Yeah, I think the ratio of what we know to what we don't is small enough that we can lay all our cards on the table and it's not spoiling anything for anyone who's coming to Maze for the first time. Like, there's still plenty out there. And I think it helps in trying to solve further puzzles to see the kinds of solutions that were already in the earlier puzzles. So I agree, it's an exciting thing. I think the more we solve, the better our odds are of solving the rest of it. But, a problem with Maze, and it's been a problem ever since the official solution was revealed, is that the big puzzle, the one that back in the 80s you could have won $10,000 by solving, what's called the riddle of the maze and the riddle of the path, it's just terrible. It's a terrible riddle with a stupid solution.
It is.
In an unfair way. I mean,
and it wasn't even worded properly, like at the end.
No. And also, Atlas doesn't carry the world on his shoulders.
What do you mean?
Sure he does. We talked about this. Atlas carried, no, I didn't talk about it with you. No, that was a corruption of, it was a misunderstanding from Greek. Atlas carried the sky on his shoulders. And he was in early sculptures as carrying the celestial sphere on his back. And then in later works, that got corrupted into the globe.
Right.
But in mythology, Atlas never carried the world on his shoulders.
Well, I know there's an incident. There was a myth about, and I remember reading this, about Hercules, how it was part of, I don't know if it fit into the 12 feats of Hercules, but there was definitely a story about where Hercules takes on Atlas's burden for like a couple minutes, and then he tricks Atlas into picking back up the world, or the celestial globe, again.
Yeah.
Because Atlas had tricked him into taking it over.
Right, yeah.
So maybe it
And
was the sky instead in that
it
story.
was this guy. And we got to use the word trick pretty loosely because he essentially just said, "Hey, will you hold this for me for a minute?"
Those
In order
great.
to get something, right?
Yeah, yeah. Can you hold this for me? I got to tie my shoe.
Right.
Well, but anyway, the problem is like the one confirmed clear riddle that we have from the book, which admittedly is supposed to be, I think, the hardest one. Presumably, it's the one that you got money for solving, is unsolvable. No one on Earth would ever, has ever, and will ever solve that riddle without the clues that were subsequently given by the publisher. And so you're left wondering, well, how much of the rest of this book can fairly be accomplished? Should I really be taxing my brain trying to figure out the rest of this book if the part that we know of is so stupid?
If it's flawed.
Right.
Yeah.
Well, the author didn't feel like it was hard. I think the Maze is an anomaly in that it even got made because I don't think Manson was known. I don't think he had a lot of experience making puzzles. He was just really visually talented artist,
Writer.
an interesting writer, and
Yeah.
then he created this thing. And I think some of the appeal of Maze is like, are you familiar with the television program Lost?
Yeah.
Sort
I
of.
haven't seen it, but Lost was a show with a lot of mystery, and it's kind of like they're kind of writing it as they go along. And so I think there's like Twin Peaks is another show like that.
Yeah.
Uh,
Yeah.
and I think it's got that same kind of appeal where you're just kind of you're constantly trying to peel back this really weird onion, and maybe when you get to the end, it's not so satisfying.
Yeah. Well, I mean, that's the thing with Lost. Lost went on long enough for enough seasons that by the time you got to the end, like everyone knew, all right, they're just making this shit up as they go along. They've got no plan behind it, and it's become garbage by this point. Um, but then works like, well, Twin Peaks only made it 2 seasons.
Yeah.
Maybe it was heading in.
Far better though than Lost, in my opinion.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Well, I haven't seen Lost, but that's why, because I think Twin Peaks is probably much better.
You take like the first season of Lost, and it is a really good show, and it really leaves you puzzled, and you think that there's something going on that you can figure out. Yeah, it's when they go too far and make you realize that there isn't. And so you've got this question about Maze when you're looking at, like, is there something there, is there not? I think sort of the exciting thing about White Raven's claim that he's solved all these rooms is it's like, okay, there's something there that can be solved by a human being without being fed clues by the publisher. He's had some contact with Manson, but from what it sounds like he wasn't given any solutions for Manson.
No.
He
He figured some
didn't have
things
them
out
all
with.
confirmed. He confirmed
What's
some
that?
of it. I don't think he even confirmed his solution with Manson. He just kind of confirmed his methodology. But yeah, that's how I understand it. So he's not even. That's why like when we get to some of his responses to solutions, he's not entirely sure. His certainty in his responses to people's solutions has decreased over time. Like earlier on, he was just like, "You're right," or but now he's kind of like, "That might be there. I don't know."
Yeah, well, I think it's probably even surprised him that we've found solutions that seem to be pretty solidly there, but that he hadn't seen before.
Yeah.
Right.
Which is not like a criticism of White Raven. It's just kind of the nature of the book.
Yeah.
It is.
But that's like another element of this the maze quest that's going on now is that it's not really like White Raven is sitting on all the answers and we're just redoing the work that he's already done. We're finding new things too, and some of the solutions he's giving, I don't buy either. And so I assume that he knows more than any of the rest of us know, and he's got a lot to tell us about the maze. But I don't think he's sitting on all the answers, which in a way makes it maybe more interesting too, to try to see what we can figure out.
I figured out how to turn on my camera.
He does have that book coming up, though, apparently.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But he said he's doing some PhD stuff in DC or something, so he's like hiatusing from that stuff, I guess.
Oh, from finishing it.
Well, I don't know. Maybe that's what he's doing in DC, and he's just like not telling us or something. I don't know. Maybe he's getting the book published. I actually offered him because I got a really cheap, good printer up here in Toronto, and like I told him because when he was like, "Oh, I'm having problems, getting the book published or whatever," I was like, "Well, dude, I have like a thing here." But I think like he wanted to remain anonymous and all that jazz, right? So he was like, "Oh, I'm not really interested." I was like, "Okay, well, I offered."
Does he have it all together? Does he have the PDFs and everything or whatever? Is it all
PDF.
laid out?
No, he wants to publish it. He wants to actually do a paper, like a book.
Well, a lot of times I think they lay it out and get it in PDF and then they print that uh,
Oh
He
yeah,
said
yeah.
all
he
together.
said he'd sent it off to the publisher, and then he was sending it to Manson to be like looked over. But then he also mentioned he was thinking of redoing the maps. And when stuff has been posted on the site, he sometimes made mention that he's going to add it to his book, or maybe he said that in emails or something. But he's made mention of adding things to the
Right.
book that have been discovered later on. So I get the impression it's still a work in progress. I don't know.
But it might always be then, unless like all of this peters out and then no one's working on things anymore. Would be
Yeah,
the
which is I could kind of see happening because once you get stalled out on the maze, it can be kind of frustrating. You just keep looking at the same rooms over and over and not seeing anything.
yeah,
It's part of why I'm hoping by doing things like the Maze Wiki and this podcast, we can attract new people to,
fresh eyes and fresh brains.
yeah, to do some of the work for us. I mean, if a new person can come along and solve anything, if a new person can come and figure one thing out that we haven't figured out before, that's big. There are only 45 rooms in there. We've solved some of them. White Raven says 6 of them completely. I don't know whether they're really solved completely. I don't know whether all the other ones aren't solved completely, but I think 6 is probably a fair estimate of how many we've solved completely.
Uh-huh.
So
Well, as you
they're
said,
only
like I think it's definitely community effort. Like the more people involved, I think it always takes fresh eyes who are going to see, even if it takes one thing, one thing in one room, like the Bigfoot in room 23. Like, what the fuck is that? Like, does it relate to something? Does it not? Maybe it doesn't. Maybe it's something, nobody's from all of us haven't noticed. I guess, even if it's
well,
one thing.
I think the best example of that is Greg's Room 7 solution, where there are 3 left eyes that aren't pictured and then
Yes.
3 right eyes that aren't pictured.
Yep. Yep.
I mean, how many times did we all look at that damn room?
It's
And how
true.
many times? I'm sure I'm not the only person who looked at the lamp that was in front of that portrait's eye and think,
Yeah.
well, that looks a little off. Like, did Manson just like fudge the lines a little bit? Like, that doesn't look quite right. Like, it always drew my attention, but then I thought it was a mistake. But then no, I was drawing your attention to it because it was covering up the eye, and that was a really big deal. That was the puzzle.
Yeah, I was always wondering about the Picasso on the right wall. I was like, why did he put that? Like, you know?
I think there's more to that one. That one's just too much. This one is not like the others.
Yeah, I think so. Because I know I studied Picasso briefly. I went to art school for a year, and he had 12 phases. So I got to figure out which one of those it was. Like he had the blue period, and cubism, like organic cubism, and then synthetic cubism, and all these other sort of folds in his style. And this was distinctly one of them. So maybe I'll look that up. Maybe it's got something to do with the style that it's done in.
That would be interesting. I mean, every single other picture here. Maybe in case you're not aware of Maze, I can do this as a visual aid. Every single other picture here is done in this realistic style, right? Yeah, there. We can all hold ours up, except for that one. So I feel like there's got to be a reason for that, unless it's just to clue you into the one eye thing. But I think there's more there. I think one of the most helpful things in Maze is a quote by Manson. I can't give you the quote, but where he talks about his goal in doing this is to try to link the verbal side and the picture side, and that's kind of his goal for himself as an artist in creation. I don't think he even feels he totally got it, but I think trying to look for synergy between the text and the pictures, I think is been my key to kind of understanding rooms. Like that's the more I
Well,
can do.
although in the example we just gave, really in room 7, did the text help you out with that at all?
It does, yeah. It was the leaving the pictures looking out at an empty room. So looking, pay attention to their eyes. That's what led me to their eyes, and then.
Yeah, I guess I could see that. Perhaps a more important paraphrase we can take from Christopher Manson, though, is that David Gentile is fucking insane.
Are we going to say that on camera?
Well, it's a little late now.
It
No,
is.
I shouldn't say that impolitely to David Gentile, but it's an important subject for people coming to Maze for the first time, because if you go to Google and you put in Maze by Christopher Manson, one of the first sites that's going to come up is oh, my daughter's waking up, my 3-year-old daughter. Someone else talk about why.
Yeah, I'll talk about him. I'll talk about him.
Okay, you give the rundown. I'll be.
All right. So Gentile, I mean, this guy, he's just big into numerology and trying to find word puzzles that may or may not exist. Mostly not, from what I've seen. I mean, he just, I mean, I don't want to speak badly of the guy, but I don't see any of the solutions that he's giving as being like valid. Like there's too much of a disconnect between what's actually in the book and the stuff that he's given up. So.
Yeah, I think a lot of times. So I think he's a very vivid example of something that can happen. I think to anyone in Maine, and that is just going down a really particular rabbit hole. One of the differences with him is that he's very confident in himself and in his own perspective, and is maybe not looking at outside input. But I know, like,
problem. You gotta have some output from the outside world. You can't just say that, oh, you know, this is how it is, especially if it's so disconnected. I mean, my thing about the sun shining in room, I think it's 23. Like I'm not even accepting that myself, even though that's the first thing that I saw that was sort of weird about that room.
Yeah, I remember that. That was, yeah. No, I think you're definitely right on that.
I mean, the thing is, like Lewis was skeptical because there was only one shadow, right? But if he had put the shadow from where the sun's coming, it would have been way too obvious. And obviously, there's got to be some kind of subtlety in the clues. He's not just going to give it up, you know, completely. I think if he would have done the other shadow, it would have been a dead giveaway. So. You know, as I said, like I studied art, and the light is definitely not coming out of the windows that are room 19. And we have another example. I think actually a better comparison is if you look at room 1, the light coming through there is really starkly straight. Like you're just not getting that effect in room 23. So.
Yeah. 23 is more similar to the light you see elsewhere.
23 is interesting. You know, and we talked about this at length. Lewis, who Alex referenced, is another person who, you know, talks about Maze and hangs out on Into the Abyss. The three of us talked about this at length, and the thing is, the shadows, I mean, there's no reason why there's no shadow coming from the door itself.
Yeah.
You know, the door itself has those panes of glass in it. The sun is shining through. The wood panels between the panes of glass should be casting a shadow, and they're just not.
Yeah.
And I can't imagine that's part of a solution or anything. It just looks like an oversight.
But it could be a cloudy day too. I mean, you're talking about the wind picking up, so it seems like gathering clouds outside. So it would be it'd be a more diffuse light.
But you can see the shadow cast by, for instance, the baseball that's on the ground 2 feet in front of the door. Really, there should be a shadow. And it's just messed up. I think, you know, maybe we're going to discover a solution that, you know, unless the door itself is illuminating, you know.
Right. I see what you're saying.
Yeah, that there's a problem there, and I think that's an important thing to keep in mind that the little details are not always reliable. Sometimes it was just kind of, yeah, fuck it.
Oversight.
Yeah, the Manson is not a perfect person, uh,
Mhm.
like everyone else. Even though we spent a lot of time on his particular artwork, that's a good point. And to remember is that he's fallible, and I think there are things you can read into Maze that maybe his conscious mind did not plan for. There's someone. Who's that?
It's my wife who I'm guessing was hoping that you would draw attention to her walking through the
Hi.
background.
Hi. What's she drinking? Tea? Is that iced tea?
Let's focus.
All right. Okay.
So my point is, we're all fallible.
You just asked what you were drinking.
Well, no, no,
Some,
no. You know what? I think when you're going into this much detail into a puzzle to lead somebody from one place to another, either on purpose or not, you really got to be wary of the things that you're doing. Otherwise, people are going to get pissed off,
Mhm.
right? If it's too blurry, like if the line is too blurred, then think of a connect there between the clues and solutions that we're all sitting here at fucking midnight talking about.
You're starting to
I think there
your
is,
audio's
frankly. I mean, look in 23. Like, you guys agree with me? My
hold
audio
on,
It
Alex.
was choppy.
Your
is it good
audio's
now?
starting to break up. Try turning off your. Oh, yeah. Try talking again.
Is it better? All right, test,
No,
test,
no,
I
okay.
can test.
test, test.
Okay, go ahead.
Yeah.
I was gonna say, do you guys see the plus sign in the 23? You think that's a thing?
I can see it. I'm not convinced it's a thing yet, but
Plus
I
sign.
wouldn't say it was not.
Hmm. Are we talking about like the maze as a whole, or are we delving into this thing?
Let's
I
talk
think
about.
the conversation can go where it goes.
Let me say a couple things about the maze as a whole before I forget about it. On the subject of Manson making mistakes or not paying attention to little details, I think the best example is just between the prologue and page one, the way the bottle completely changes. From the prologue, you look through and you can see the bottle that's on the door to room 41, and then you turn to page one, and it's still a bottle, but it's totally different shaped.
It was
Well,
more
on
illuminated.
the cover of the book, there's no bottle at all on the door. And it's
Oh,
like,
Oh
totally messed up on that one. No, I don't think that's supposed to be representative because it also has the big fish on there.
no,
The
I
red
know,
hair.
but it's the same style of door, and it's the same style of
Yeah.
entryway.
Look at the arc of light, though.
Mm-hmm.
Oh,
I think that that bottle is meant to be drawn as a transparent bottle, and so when it's the darkest, which is on the cover, you can't see the bottle at all. And when the light gets close to the bottle, you can kind of see the outline. And then when the light is almost on the no, it's in the same place. You're right.
Yeah,
I'm
I mean,
looking. Yeah,
it has a much thicker neck on the prologue page. On the page one, you can actually see into the mouth of the bottle, like it's tilted so you can slightly see inside. Whereas in the prologue, you can only see the side of the mouth. I mean, it's clear different illustration of a bottle. It's
yeah.
like he didn't look at the bottle he drew before and try to draw the same bottle.
well, he did with the deja vu rooms.
He did, although even those have deliberate differences, but they have small, probably accidental
Minute.
differences too. If you really look at them close, because he didn't just copy the same image over and add changes. He drew the whole thing over again from scratch apparently, and
Right.
it was impossible to get it perfect.
I'm
Yeah.
sure he
Um,
overlaid it. He had like a transparent layer, and
mm,
did the things that he wanted to make.
And so if you're not careful, that change in the bottle, you could really read into that and try to come up with some overarching thing about like losing, like weight loss, like some message of weight loss, possibly lightening you up, and then use that as some clue to some door in another page.
Hmm.
You gotta watch out for that.
Yeah. And I didn't get to hear everything that was said about Gentile, so make sure we gave the appropriate warnings. Look out for his website if you're Googling Maze, Christopher Manson. If you go to Into the Abyss, don't judge the website by the 10,000 comments from David Gentile you're going to see on there. Is that all fair to say? Although
Yeah.
it's not like we want to give.
Well, listen, if you really want to read Gentile, read it last. Like, read everybody else's stuff first, because his stuff is fairly lengthy, and I'm sure there's like a tidbit or two of information there. But you know, read it last because it's a shit ton to read, and you'll just get lost in it. So, like, you know, read everybody else's short responses that are pretty clear cut in terms of what's actually there, and then, you know, if you really want to, you know, get into Gentile's site. He does have really good SEO though.
He has the mind of a conspiracy theorist. He can take some small idea, some small hypothesis, and just take it to its furthest conclusion, and which can be interesting to read, but you have to take it for what it is, and you have to watch for that little moment where he's making a leap, and see that leap, and not take it as like direct causal evidence necessarily.
Yeah,
and then I think you could also use that for yourself when exploring the maze to be like, am I making a leap here that is not there? He's a very stark example of that.
Yeah, it ain't hard to spot when David Gentile takes a leap. It's usually right after he makes a concrete observation about the book and then starts to interpret it. But he does have really keen insights sometimes. I mean, I don't ignore completely the posts that he makes, but it's really frustrating. You'd kind of prefer if it were just total nonsense and total garbage, because then I would just, you know, ignore it completely. But every once in a while he'll have something in there. It's like, yeah, I guess I never thought of it that way, or that seems plausible, or that's a good observation. That's a good connection between the text and the picture. And then
the next step is crazy.
Yeah, then the next step is a reference to Jesus Christ Superstar.
that was He's got a voracious mind. I think part of it is the quantity. There's just so much that kind of drowns other things out. And just as I said while you were taking care of your daughter, just there's too much confidence. I think whenever someone's too confident, that leads to blind spots.
Yeah, and there's sort of tenacious adherence to his method and his results. You know, I tried so hard to try to get him involved in a dialogue and to say, you know, just we're not going to agree with that stuff. Once you start going 16 steps down the road with stuff, we're not going to agree with it. Just please accept that we don't agree with it and stop trying to convince us, because we're having the same argument every time. And but he still wants to go on about that stuff. It makes it very difficult to have a conversation. Poor David Gentile. Us talking about him for half the podcast here. No hatred or disrespect intended for Mr. Gentile.
Yeah, we love you, Dave. You're a supporter. You know, you're just like us. Well, until you get into that stuff.
We're each our own snowflake. But we appreciate your snowflake.
Okay, so is that? I think we've hit the main points of introduction that I wanted to do. You know, sort of explain what Maze is and why it's big again, sort of among a sort of growing group of people, and why it could be interesting. Or did we cover that? You know, I started talking about the problem of the riddle of the maze being total bullshit, but did we go further than that and say why? Oh yeah, we did. We went into why there's reason to think that the rest of it isn't, because of Into the Abyss, essentially. Okay, so did you want to get into discussing particular rooms or solutions at this point? Or are you ready to call it a night?
I don't know. I'm personally more interested in the identity of the guide, but I'll just tell the viewers like what Raven said on the site was that it's based on leftover clues from after you're done with everything else. There are certain clues in the rooms which will tell you basically the identity of the guide, which he never said, or he or she never said. I think it's a he.
Raven said he's a he.
Okay. In any case, he said that he didn't say like whether the clues in the books, like the fire in my eyes, you should call me Cerberus, blah blah blah. If any of that stuff actually applied or not. I mean, that's all he explicitly
It
said.
does.
He
He did
does.
say it does. Yeah.
He says it doesn't.
It applies, not sufficient to give you the answer.
Yeah, that's not the way you figure out what it is, who it is, the guide, but it does all apply to who the guide is. There's the way you find the guide is like a whole nother set of things that don't seem to relate to it, but once you get to the end, apparently then presto, you know who the guide is.
Yeah. See, that doesn't sit well with me because it's like which clues did he grab? Like how many were there? Like it's just there's a very broad spectrum of what that could mean. That it just seems like it can't. I don't know. You know what I mean? Like there's a lot of clues in the book, and it would be hard to do. And the other thing, I asked him this. He never responded, maybe because he couldn't because he was busy. But I asked like, does that mean that once a clue is used up for either a room identity or the riddle of the last room, then is it eliminated, or can you use it again for the identity of the guide?
I thought he did say that it used it up.
No, Gentile made a response to that, but Raven did.
Okay. I thought that's what he was. I thought maybe this was Gentile, but I thought someone said, I thought it was Raven, that in order to figure out the guide, you have to kind of figure out all the room clues first, because that eliminates.
Well, yes, you have to use up all the clues that are associated with either the room or the riddle of the maze, and then once those are spent, then apparently the rest of them are the guide's identity.
Yeah, but he didn't make clear, I guess, whether those are the only clues that go to the guide's identity.
Yes. Yeah.
I see. Yeah. I don't know.
And see, that's such a thing that makes me say, God damn it, Manson, because there's absolutely no indication in the book that there are these other strings of clues unrelated to the rooms, as if the rooms aren't difficult enough. I mean, what it says in the directions is that the answer to the riddle of the maze is hidden somewhere along the shortest path. It doesn't say that in every room along the shortest path there's a clue to part of a phrase that is in itself a clue to the answer to the riddle. So, I mean, before you knew that, and you just got letters in there that you've got nothing to do with, words, the majority of room 26 is devoted to Atlas, it seems like, more so than the actual room solution, the correct door solution. And that shit just seems unfair.
Yeah, it's not fair.
And then there's another string of clues that are unrelated to. Although, if White Raven found it, it's possible. It can be done.
So what? If it's so unfair, why does it appeal to you?
The book is aesthetically appealing to me, independent of how unfair it is. Like, even if, well, I mean, I really only came to view it as being fair somewhat recently with Into the Abyss, with seeing some of the solutions that I can see them and look the solutions there, and someone can reach it and it's fair, But for the last, God, how many years? 20-some years that I've had this book. When I was a kid, I had no clue. I just assumed it was fair because I didn't know any better. And then at some point, figured, well, maybe it isn't, and then around the year 2000, learned the riddle of the maze. It's like, boy, that really ain't fucking fair.
Mhm.
But it's such an intriguing book just because of Manson's artwork and the design of the puzzles, even when they're not fair. Very intriguing. It's hard to not want to keep coming back and looking at it, and you just want it to make sense. And
Yeah,
and
I share that sentiment for sure. Like I always think that it's like I always think that there's something like it's always every time I pick it up, it's just I can't stop looking at the pictures and trying to figure it out just sort of instinctually.
Yeah, there's something just out of reach. And so there's the kind of three stated goals of the maze, right? Or that three things you're supposed to do: find the center, find the quickest way in and out, and then find the riddle business, right? But there's stuff beyond that, like the guide. For me, my own kind of thing that obsession. Well, less so now. I'm kind of more focused on the rooms now. But the top hat guy is kind of my own thing. What the deal is with the top hat guy. That just kind of keeps me going beyond those three things. So I don't know if I mentioned I run a childcare, and I would read the book with the kids. The kids, this is like 3 and 4-year-olds will look at, and you might want to try it with your daughter, will look at this book with me for like an hour and just picking rooms and turning
Yes.
the pages. And
Exploit our children for solutions.
right. It's a nice way to be able to look at, but they always want to go too quick, so that's why I took it with.
I was looking at it with my 3-year-old daughter the other day, and yeah, she liked looking at the pictures and pointing out the numbers. And then we were looking at room 4, and she just glanced at it, and then she pointed to the unmarked doors, and she's like, "They forgot that one."
Uh-huh. They always want to go through the unmarked doors. They do.
Room 10, man, room 10. Just write it. The paintbrush is there.
Right. Yeah.
Just write 1 or 45 or whatever.
Yeah, wherever you want to go. There.
Oh, you guys saw The Lost Room, right?
What's that?
Did you guys see The Lost Room? It was a 6-part miniseries about this room in extra-dimensional space, and you could only access it by using this magical key. And there was other items that were related to this room that do weird things, but like the key was the most powerful. And you could, and maybe the fact that White Raven mentioned that, maybe, I don't know, that sort of tips me off, that, and the fact that it looks like the drums as well.
No, I haven't seen that. It's a show or a movie or.
It's a 6-part miniseries. It's an hour each. Yeah, it's decent. Like the ending was kind of shitty, but it could be set up for another season, I guess, or whatever.
Does that have Duala from Battlestar Galactica in it?
Possibly. I never watched that show, so.
Okay, I think I was looking at that show. Yeah, I'll check it out.
Yeah, just like download it or something.
Have you guys looked at White Raven's mythology of the Maze mythology section on his website?
I think I did when I first came upon the site, but I don't remember any of that stuff now because it was taking too much information.
What's interesting about it is it has a lot of mythology on it that really has nothing to do with mazes, which suggests to me that he put it on there because it's relevant to the book Maze in some way, but not actually to mazes in general.
Uh-huh.
I suspect that the narrator is going to end up being someone who's mentioned in his Maze mythology section.
Oh, they're like meta clues.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, something like that.
You mean Maze history or history of Maze?
No. I guess I'd have to go
I'll
to
be
the
right
website.
back. I gotta do something.
Okay.
On Maze mythology, right? I see it. It's in the ephemera section.
Yeah. Or is it? Yeah, on Maze mythology. Yeah. I suspect that the identity of the guide is also related to the top-headed man that's going through the maze. Just because there does seem to be a path associated with that guy. You know, there's different rooms where you can see him clearly in what room is that? Set 16, 16, and then, well, in different rooms they make reference to some, hearing someone leave just before you got there, or, in 44 the door was left open by somebody. You can see someone leaving. In what room is it? The room with the potato and the
Yeah.
pine
The guy with
compass.
the top hat. You can fake
Yeah,
the
looks
top
like
hat.
it.
Oh, I forget which one.
And then of course there's these, the room where he's left his top hat by the fireplace. So it seems like there's a trail of rooms associated with that guy's, and I don't think there's going to be a trail of rooms associated with that guy, and then a trail of rooms associated with the narrator. So I'm guessing they're connected in some way.
Well, in the section on Into the Abyss where he talks about his upcoming book, like his little promo section, he said that there's actually 8 types of rooms. You guys see that? Like 8
Yeah.
types of rooms. I don't know what he means by that. Maybe thematic, or they have specific meanings, like the rebuses mean certain things in a certain way. Or, well, the other thing too, I think the two things that we all sort of lightly brought up was the playing card suits, and also the chess pieces, because I see a lot of chess pieces. Like in room 7, somebody was mentioning how the light looks weird, and then you can see that it's like a queen or something at the top of the light, and then you got them all over. Like in 8, you got the candlestick that looks like a bishop. The shadow looks like a bishop, and then you got room 10 where the posters on the bed look like elongated bishops again. Like those are everywhere.
I think that the bishop is a little tougher to say. I'm just walking in on the conversation the other way, but
Well, yeah, I'm just throwing it out there, but it's like just those are odd shapes for those things. Like bed, 4-poster beds, they don't look like that. They're usually balls. Like why did you make it look like there's got to be some significance to? Maybe I'm reading deeply into
one
it.
thing to keep
It
in mind,
happens too
you could
frequently.
be right, but one thing to keep in mind is he has a thing for like different types of architecture and furniture design. I think I
Yes.
remember reading that about Manson, and so I think that's partly what makes the visual style so compelling is that it's like a survey of architecture at the same time, kind of all mismatched together, but which makes it harder to say what's a queen and not. But I never noticed that queen piece before.
Yeah, I mean there's a few other rooms where it appears. Again, like I'm not gonna like say that that's in stone, but it's definitely on my list here of peculiar things.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe I'll put it on the wiki or something. Yeah, it's also hard to say like sort of what range of literature he uses, because in room 39 he's got that story about the guy who the count of something, and he bricks up the other guy. He tricks him into going into
Fortunata. Yeah.
Yeah,
When I heard that was like, dang, I have to know stuff like about.
Well, that's what I'm saying. Like it's a wide
within the puzzle, right?
it's a wide range of knowledge.
You have to have some literary knowledge.
But do we have a real solid instance of a puzzle that requires any extensive amount of outside knowledge of literature or mythology? I mean, there are references, but...
Well, I thought 39 isn't the Fortunata like the 4? Wasn't that the clue to the room?
I don't know that the only one or the main one. To me, that seems to be a clue, but I don't know.
No, I don't think you need that at all. Like because there's enough artwork about this story that you could just recognize this. Oh yeah, I remember that in a children's book. My mom read me, Edgar Allan Poe or whatever, and there was a picture of it next to the thing, and oh yeah, where was that from? And then you pull out your old book, and there it is, right?
Mm.
I don't know how much the text would help me with that. Like once I did see the woodcuts of that theme, I was like, holy shit! Like anybody who's seen that would recognize what that is. But that's what it takes. It takes somebody who's sort of seen that imagery before or know that story. I didn't know that story before.
Yeah.
I know The Raven by Edgar Allan Poe, but that's about it.
Well, I guess so room 3, is it room 3? You're supposed to know the riddle of the Sphinx, or it definitely helps to know that.
That's true.
That's some knowledge some people don't have. A lot. It's pretty common though.
Yeah, it is.
I don't know how many instances there are of that, and that's part of that kind of insecurity of maze. You don't know if you can even. And we feel more security now because we have the Abyssian site, but you don't know if you have the knowledge base to solve a particular room.
It's true.
But it seems like that's kind of rare. I don't know. Like maybe you had to have seen Jesus Christ Superstar to be able to solve maze.
But still, it's the only way to appreciate how effeminate Herod was.
that was pretty bad.
Yeah, I mean, that's true. We know so little about what the solutions are, it's hard to say. My guess, which may just be optimistic, which again is based on Manson being kind of accepting popular wisdom over the actual truth of Greek mythology and saying that Atlas bears the world on his shoulders, is that it's really only concerned with stuff that's more or less common knowledge that you'd expect the average person to have, not that it's going to require any in-depth knowledge.
Yeah, I think you're right. But common knowledge in '85 is different than common knowledge now.
Yeah, not too much if we're talking about Greek mythology or Edgar Allan Poe.
Right.
It should be pretty much standard. If you buy into the whole Voyager 1 Devilbird stuff, then I guess that was probably more in the public consciousness then than now, but I'm not sure that I really buy any of that stuff.
No. Right, like the Atlas rocket?
Yeah.
The 3-stage Atlas, yeah.
That's something that would be more common then. There was someone talking about a railroad thing. Was that one of you guys?
The Gentile was saying that the totem in room 35 looked like a railroad signal. Which,
yeah,
I mean,
it sort of does. But it doesn't look like it would. It doesn't look like it would stand upright. Like without that, you know what I mean? Like it looks like it's heavy, like top heavy towards where the glove is.
Yeah, you're right.
You would need that extra where that hidden F is, that extra pull thing. You would need that for that not to fall over. If that was real, right?
Uh-huh. Yeah, unless it's like
dug in and pull it down. It's not stable.
Yeah, you're right.
In my opinion, maybe you could if you like really balance it well.
Well, that's a good point. I mean, that one leg just goes straight down. There's nothing like bracing it in that direction. Yeah, that doesn't seem stable at all.
No, I think it would fall over, unless that wood is really light. The arm sticking out.
Yeah, that's true. If the two boards supporting it in the back are like 10 times heavier than all the boards in there, then those should be enough to weigh it down. It's a possible object.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, what anything you think in particular we should look at for next time? A room we should focus on, or something we want to clue into?
It'd be fun to just try to solve a room. Just pick a room and let a group solve it.
Yeah.
Okay.
Although real disappointing when it doesn't work.
Right. And then it's about the process, though. It's all about the process.
Yeah. Well, it's fun to hang out and do it. I don't know that it's fun to watch.
Right. Right.
Because I tried that before with a couple of guys, and we sat here for 2 hours, a little over 2 hours, trying to figure out something in the book, and we did nothing. And it's a regrettable experience for anyone who tries to watch it, I'm sure.
I did watch it though. I did.
Was it fun?
Well, I learned a couple of things that I hadn't thought of. I mean, most of it, most of it I had thought of, but it was just funny to hear it on video. I guess. I guess I haven't seen this being done over Google Hangouts.
Right.
So
A lot of my background is with board games, hobby-wise. And there is a thing where people will just videotape themselves playing board games, and people watch that.
well, you know what? As far as like intricate puzzles and that kind of stuff, I was never into like Monopoly and all that bullshit. But I did like Mind Trap, which was it had a couple of like mathematical ones, like trick numbers where it's like well, I don't even know, but some of the other ones it was about like a short one paragraph murder mystery, and there was like a mistake in the criminal's testimony or something like that, and then the guy at the end, like Inspector Shadow, he'd be like, nope, you're wrong. Like, how did Shadow know? And it was something like, he said he pushed the door, but like, earlier in the text, it had been a pull door. So, like, he lied when he said that he pushed the door. But it was always very clear cut. Like, there was always something that was definite, and the answer was on the back of the card, right? Saying, like, this is what happened. Like, he lied about the door or something or whatnot. Or, like, traveling west when he actually traveled east because the sun was pointing in a certain direction. But it was always like within reach. It was nothing like Maze, where it's just like, well, could it not be? Like, Vince, what do you think? Like, Ben, Lewis, everybody, like, what do you guys think? Like, it's I always feel like I gotta verify stuff with you guys because it's and some people won't agree. Like that whole like sun in room 23 or 23. It's like some people agree with me, some don't. But so it's hard to say. Like, what is Manson? What do you say?
Yeah, I don't think the light's coming from the sun.
Mind Trap, I used to live in a house with a bunch of people, and I used to take the Mind Trap cards and glue them to the wall.
Oh, yeah.
It would be like and then I would like hide it so that I would think that someone would like uncover a picture or something and then see Mind Trap and then be stuck there, and they wouldn't be able to find the answer because it was glued to the wall. But it never worked. I set mind traps around.
My brother and I like to quote Shadow. He had this line where I think he repeated it sometimes when he would say to people, "You're obviously lying." And sometimes it was like such a minor point that they could have just made a mistake or something, but it's like he's going to be out of murder because, they said, wait a minute, you said the last digit of your social security number is a 3, but... So that's whenever it became like a catchphrase for us when we were kids, where someone would make some minor mistake on something. You're obviously lying.
I'm going to use that.
Yeah. I think we can probably wrap this up. I think this has probably gone on long enough. Yeah. We can close out. We can stop recording and then keep talking. Look at some rooms if you want, or we can call it a night.
I'm good either way. Maybe I'll turn in. I don't know.
Okay. Well, here I'll go ahead and stop broadcasting. Hey, if you made it this far, hopefully you're in for the long haul. Go out and get a copy of Maze. And then,
How can you get a copy of Maze, Vincent? How's it one get a copy of Maze?
Amazon.
Any way that you buy a book.
No, they're literally a penny on Amazon. I just bought 2 for 2 pennies. The shipping was more. It was like $6 each, but I spent like fucking $12 on 2 copies of Maze for my friends.
Oh, good deal.
Yeah, great deal.
Either of these books? I got these books on... I don't think it was Amazon. But these are also by...
Manson's not making any money on these resales of used books. He's glad to know people are interested.
They are out there apparently, according to White Raven. He said there's a few vendors still out there with new copies.
Yeah.
I'd like to see a hardcover personally, because then mine fell apart. It's got like a split down the spine here, so I had to tape it up.
Yeah, I've got.
Actually, it's split on room 26, which is funny.
My page 45 is gone.
Oh.
Mine's gonna be gone
It's over here.
soon.
It's
Um,
disembodied. But I don't like this room. I never go to this room. Yeah.
all right, so we'll broadcast again next week, and hopefully we'll have somebody interested enough to watch this. But if not, we're just gonna keep doing it.
Are they archived? Like, do they just have to watch it live, or can they watch it later?
No, this goes on YouTube. It'll be there permanently.
Yeah.
Okay. So someone will watch it.
Yeah. Well,
We hope.
and Tyler and White Raven will watch it. All right.
If you give me the YouTube address, I can put it on a playlist on my YouTube page. I have some subscribers, and I watch it.
I will. I'll give you the stuff. All right. Good night.